in 2004, once I came back from my injury, started to play football again. I started looking at real estate and learning, and I went to a conference called National Grant Conference. And I tell people this, my stories, listen to the little details, because the whole way I'm learning, but I haven't pulled the trigger yet. And I think a lot of, especially today with the microwave era, we want that instant gratification. I started thinking about real estate in 2003, but I didn't really pull the trigger in 2005. But for those 2 years, I'm learning. Mm-hmm. So I went to a place called National Grant Conference, and they went from, and everybody has people like this. They got HGTV people that used to be on HGTV, but now they just go conference to conference. What you call it even does that on the Breakfast Club now.
Envy.
Envy starting to do that. You know what I'm saying? A shout out to him for doing that. I definitely should be one of the guest speakers in that. But like, and they would tell you enough that actually they would drop some free gems. But then up to that point, then they would be like, all right, if you want more, now you got to give us $1,000 and sign up. Right? And I waited, and I went to one of the things. I learned some stuff, and they was like, "Give me $1,000." At that point in time, what happens? 70% of the room always walks out, right? I was one of the ones that stayed, but I'm 20 years old. I had no money, like, $1,000 to give y'all. So I went home, asked my parents. They said, "Boy, you crazy. You better go ahead and finish college." So what I did, as soon as I went on scholarship, I took out a loan for a student loan for $10,000, and that 10 grand was a refund check because now I'm on full scholarship. And I took 1,000 from that 10 and gave it to that conference. And from that conference, I learned, you got a little booklet, and I learned something called a 203K loan. And that 203K loan, I mentioned, you mentioned that episode 12. Sure. And back in those days, which was the good old days, you can do a stated income.
Stated income.
And I did stated income.
The good old days. The good old days.
But it's a great thing if you got fiduciary responsibility and you want to do right thing with your thing. But 90% of people don't, man. You make the money, you want to go out buy a Bentley or you want to get a new TV. All my boys on the team, they was buying Jordans with their little per diems from like the checks when we would go playing. I was stacking mine. Instead of living in the dorms, I lived at home with my mom. And I wrote a lease from my mom to me as if my mom was renting the room in my own house, and made Temple
the scholarship money. They gave you the scholarship money.
They gave me the scholarship money.
So if anybody's not familiar, I'll interject because I went to the University of Hawaii. So similar situation where you have on-campus housing for athletes and you have off-campus housing. So a lot of schools, they kind of force you to live on campus. But some schools, like when I was in Hawaii, what they did was they gave us the check for housing, and then we get apartments off campus. So the check was like $6,000, right? Mm-hmm. Then let's say your apartment is $3,000. Now you got a difference of $3,000. So you can just splurge on Jordans, or you can. But you was actually smart because you kept all the money because you was living at home.
I was living at home.
That's pretty responsible. Even like the student loan thing. Like I know guys who've done that. Like, I'm gonna take out the student loan for more than I really need, and I'm gonna use it for something else. But like
exactly,
like you invested in your future.
I invested in my future, and so I hope people are listening. Just in this world to just get successful, man, you just got to think outside the box and understand that everything is possible and everything is like chess. It's like a game. So when I wrote that, and understand, I hate people that say, "Oh, I can't," or "No," or they always got like the first thing, "Well, this ain't gonna work." How you know it ain't gonna work? I told the university, I'm living at home. I had a lease. My mom wrote it, $500 a month for the room. Hey man, you got to take it. It might be a loophole, but you got to take it, right? So once I did that, I learned, took out that 10 grand. I had 9,000 left. I had 9,000 left over, and I put that down on my first duplex. Yeah, and it was a doozy, man. It looked like bombs from Baghdad hit it. It was huge though. It was like 3,000 square feet, and I fixed it up. I ran into some problems with the builder. I had a pastor. he's a pastor at a church, but he had his own construction company called Kingdom Builders, and I was like, ain't no way in hell, man, I'm gonna get gypped by a pastor, and I got gypped by a pastor. He didn't know what the hell he was doing. I remember walking in. This was the day that, and this is fast forward 2005. I got undrafted free agent from the Chargers. I'm back and forth for 2 years, on and off, like being in limbo with the team, and in 2005, I'm fixing up the house while I'm in school with the pastor at Kingdom Builders, and I walk in and I see 3 guys painting one window. One guy on the ladder painting, one guy holding the actual bucket of paint, and the third motherfucker watching. And that's when I was like, yo, nah. And that's when I was like, you know what? I don't need nobody. I'm gonna start running my own job. So I ran into own job. I'm training to make it to the league. I get an internship with a real estate developer in Philadelphia, and at that point, this goes to the point we were talking about earlier. Rashad, is I saw it. I saw what I wanted to do because he was right in front of me. This dude was worth almost $1 billion.
How'd you get connected with him?
So how I got connected with him, it was that's a good question. We had a senior seminar, a billionaire brunching. It was called Billionaire Brunching in my senior seminar class, and it was Steve Klein of the Klein Company, who ended up giving me an internship. Steve Corman of Corman Communities, Corman is huge. I'm talking billions. He got high rises down Manhattan, Philly. Him and his sons run the company now. There was a CEO of Citizens Bank at the time, and then there was Sister Mary Skellion, who owns one of the largest nonprofits in Philadelphia. And the night before, I did my research on Steve Klein and Steve Corman, so I can walk up to him. And Steve Corman was like, he was like Omega, like dude was like too big for me to even really like. Nothing against all due respects to Mr. Steve Klein, but Steve Corman was just like, I didn't really relate to him as much. But Steve Klein was like cool, like real cool Jewish man. He was he did projects like loft projects in like Maitland, Florida, and he was huge. I mean, he's huge, but he was relatable to me. And I walked up to him after we did the brunching and everybody's leaving. I'm walking towards, I swear I was the only student to walk towards them while everybody was leaving out. And what that told me that nobody saw themselves able to approach these cats. So, take advantage of your opportunities. You know what I mean? I don't have too many regrets when it comes to opportunities. I try to take advantage of all my opportunities. Only regret I have is recently when I was interviewed at This Is 50. I'm a huge 50 Cent fan, and I'm walking out, and 50 was down there talking at the boardroom. I should have just busted in there to let him know, like, yo, bro, you have changed, like you have been like a driving force in my life and where I'm going, and like how much I looked up to him, because I don't look up to many people.
You might owe him money for that, though.
Huh? You might owe him some money for that.
He wants money by Monday.
Hey, by Monday. Owing 50 Cent that's a good problem to have.
I mean, the last dude ran up on him. He was like, it ain't gonna work.
It ain't gonna work. But I was actually in the This Is 50 office, though. You know what I mean?
You was halfway there.
Yeah,
I mean, but that's true, too, man. Like, you saw something that you could aspire to be, and that's something that we've been trying to preach. Is like, it's tough, especially in our community,
it's tough
to want to be something if we've never seen it. Like, every day, the message of athlete, entertainer is put in front of us, whether we like it or not.
Whether
right?
we like it or not.
So you saw the opportunity. I mean, how many more chances will you have to sit in a room with billionaires?
Well, billionaires,
So
right? And
I saw it and went for it.
Right, I saw it and went. Actually, where I just moved to, I moved to it so I could meet a billionaire, and look what happened. I met the friend of the billionaire, and I've been talking to him. He's really impressed. He can't believe how far I've come on my own. Which also lets me know. And I'm coming down here today to meet you guys. He emailed me off of something that I was running by him 3 days ago, and he was thinking about me in the entry on to say, you know what, what we talked about before, I think I misstated what you should do with that property, and ran it down. This dude is his portfolio is worth over $1 billion. I'm on a train. I open up my email. He was thinking of me, and you know, which is crazy. You become the company you keep, and who you aspire to be. So back to the story. I'm walking up to Mr. I call him Mr. Klein. He hates it because he wants to be like cool and young. And but it's out of respect. I said, you know, Mr. Klein, I said, I love what you're doing in Maitland, Florida. I remember saying, I like those loft apartments are kicking ass down there. This, that, and the third. You know, I knew white people that love saying kicking ass, so I remember saying that to him. And he was like, who are you? And I was like, I'm Shawn Bullard. And I was like, I would love to intern with you. I was like, it's not my major, because my major was sport rec and facilities management. That's another thing. When you go to college, you just get the piece of paper. You know what I'm saying? Just get it. You can be, I never even used my degree. And he said, all right, well, I'll see if we can give you an internship. I said, look, you're on the board. You donate a lot of money to the university. They're not going to turn you away. Put the pressure on him. And next thing you know, a week later, his assistant, who is still with him, gave me a call, and they gave me an internship. I was making $500 a week, and I would go. This dude has a country club with mansions around it. I was working the grounds there for like 2 weeks. Then another week, I would work at I'll be a maintenance man in one of his like apartment building complexes. And then the third week I would go, and then I would be suited up every day with the executives in the boardroom talking about the next projects. And at that moment, one of his guys was his VP of development. His job, and this is when you're talking about, Troy, we don't see this in the hood. We don't have this as an example. His job, he got paid $200,000 a year to fly to fly Mr. Klein's private jet around the United States to find land that he could buy. Yeah. I didn't even know that was possible. I was like, what? You don't sit at like a desk all day? Dude came in suited up. First dude I ever saw that wore a suit, not with a tie. He had the two buttons open. The first time I ever saw that. So I thought that was so cool.
He's literally just like Google mapping, trying to find land.
Trying to find land, and he was Mr. Klein say, hop on my. I remember Mr. Klein coming into the office when he found him some land that he was going to buy. He bought some land for like $10 million, and he was like, yeah, I need you to go next week to Texas to look at it. It's like, he was like, I got you, and on his jet.
So did you keep relationships with him when you was in the NFL?
Yeah, I kept relationships with them. He actually took me out to lunch about almost a year ago.
Okay. These guys are like mentors now.
Yeah. Mr. Klein is like, he's still hard to get in contact. I got more other mentors that are like the White Carey has been a big mentor with me. I met him. He's a professor at Temple, but he's major. He won't even tell me how major he is, but he's super major. These cats have been mentors, absolutely. Yeah. So when I saw it, that's when I knew I wanted to be that. That's when it was like, yo, NFL money ain't nowhere near this money.
Not for long.
Not for long.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, on my Instagram, Shawn_Zaddy_Bullard is, I'm not no square proper dude, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm from the streets, I'm hood, but I'm just polished. And I try to keep that. I try to take that hip hop and that polishedness, but refer it to real estate to make our kind be able to understand it more. And I think it's starting to catch on.
All right, you're in the right place for that.
Yeah,
that's right up our alley. So. Right.